Welcome back to the Hype is Real. This is season 2 of your favorite podcast for revenue leaders by revenue leaders, brought to you by Outplay and RevGenius. I'm Laxman, the co-founder and CEO of Outplay, and I'm joined by Jared Robin, the co-founder of RevGenius. We'll be your hosts for this season. Join us as we talk to founders and revenue leaders who have created a stir in the startup world. We will uncover their personal stories, challenges in the business, and what it took them to build their products and teams. And once you're done listening, you'll definitely say the hype is real. This season is a special season. We'll be talking to a lot of inspirational women revenue leaders who have taken the entire startup SaaS space by storm. And today we are thrilled to have a second season with a powerful and dynamic woman leader, Kelly Wright from Gong. She is the COO and President of Gong, the reality platform for revenue leaders, and she has over 30 years of go-to-market operational and board experience, taking high-growth companies to success and IPOs. We are so excited to have you here, Kelly. Thank you so much, and there is so much to learn from you and take inspiration from you for the next 45 minutes.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great. It's great to be on. Appreciate the invite.
Wonderful. Thank you. And before we start off with the actual questions, your journey with Gong and all that, let's start with a fun question. If you could take only 3 books or just 3 movies to a desert island, what would they be and why?
You know what? I love to read. And so I read tons of books. I usually read about 50 books a year. And so it's really, really hard to answer that question. I think what I would do is the most special part of my life, even with all the work and everything I do, is my family. And I think I would have to choose some collection of 3 home movies that I would take with me. So that's what I would watch.
Wonderful. Family is always an inspiration.
So, we all have our, journey into sales and or, the revenue world, and it often starts quite humbly. We noticed, just looking through some of your posts that you used to sell books door to door, and this was super intriguing, as it was a transformative experience for you, right? I'm curious.
Yeah, it was.
That, yeah.
It's interesting because when people look at my background, that always jumps out. And it seems that I'm always asked about it. And it is very different and unique. So here's a little story about it. When I went to college in the summer, everyone was doing these internships, or they'd go back and do lifeguarding or go home and get some summer job. And I just was always excited about building my own business and doing something entrepreneurial. And so I heard about this company where it employed college students in the summer to run their own business selling educational books door to door. And so that's what I did. And I did it for 4 summers in college. I worked all summer, about 80 to 100 hours a week. Every day, I knocked on over 30 doors to have conversations with over 30 families. In those 4 summers, I sat down with over 12,000 families and parents and their kids to talk about their education. And it was super transformative to me in multiple ways. One is, early on, I learned the value of grit, because selling door to door, it's all about putting the activities in. The second is, by far, that was the hardest job that I've ever had. I mean, if people think like sales and what we do is hard, resetting to 0 every day, every month, every quarter, when you go door to door, you are typically not the most welcome person that people see showing up at their house. And many people want to slam the door, and actually do slam the door in your face. So you learn a few things from that humbling experience. The first is, you can only control what you can control. Like when you show up at each door, you put your best foot forward, but you can't control what happened to the other person. And if they're going to slam the door in your face, you just have to deal with that. But then you have to show up next door a couple seconds later and put your best best face forward and have your, best introduction, because they're going to decide, or they're going to slam the door in your face within like 15 or 30 seconds. The other thing that I learned, though, that was really profound, other than hard work, control what you can control, the importance of like first impressions, all of that, is I just learned that I loved being able to have a real impact by helping solve people's problems, and being able to do that by storytelling, hearing everyone's unique situation and story, and then learning how to emotionally connect with each of those folks. And so that experience taught me how to work hard, that I definitely wanted to go into sales and do something entrepreneurial. And it was just a great way to kick off my sales career.
You know who else did that or something similar, right? Probably a lot of people, but Phil Knight jumps out as me for selling encyclopedias when he was in Hawaii. So some really big names started similarly.
Yeah, I know you. I read about that, and when I read his book too, it's very character building. From the time I was 18 to 22, to be able to do something that just teaches you so many of the tenets of success, of hard work, of grit, and just how important it is to be able to have that emotional connection. I mean, I talked to 12,000 families in their homes, and I saw everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It teaches you how to also be agile, flexible, adaptable. Here's the other thing. Selling books door to door, I sold in the Northeast, and it's super hot in the summer. And so whether it was burning, scorching hot, pouring rain, and then you have experiences of like knock on a door and a dog gets outside and comes chasing you, and you have to jump over hedges and they're nipping at your ankles, and police stopping you to see if you are illegally soliciting, and carrying a 25-pound bag for hours every day over my shoulder. Like there's just, it was a lot, and it's hard, but it was certainly character building.
Did that lead to culture-driven sales that you're like advocating for?
Culture-driven sales, I think, came a bit later. For those of you who don't know, I do have my own thought leadership that's called culture-driven sales. Actually, the way culture-driven sales came about, and a lot of that did start from early days in my journey of being able to learn the value of storytelling, of connecting people to people. Because the main thing is, we're all in sales. Sometimes companies get a little tripped up thinking companies are selling to companies. And that's kind of true, but it's people selling to people. It's always people selling to people. So you need to have that human interaction. But culture-driven sales actually came because I was at Tableau for 12 years. I started as the first salesperson there, employee 10, started 1 month before I launched version 1. And then I was there as Chief Revenue Officer, Executive Vice President of Sales, was my official title when I was there, for 12 years through the IPO, hyper growth, all of that as we scaled. And when I decided to go do board work for my next chapter, board work and teaching, I realized like how we built and scaled Tableau. We were super intentional about having a really core mission that everyone knew about. It wasn't just words on the wall. Our mission at Tableau was we help people see and understand data. And then we were also really thoughtful about what our core values were as a company. And those we lived and breathed by. Like we hired people, that informed our performance management, how we interacted with our customers or with our ecosystem. And we created this amazing universe and environment and community of raving fans, and created a really positive place to work where people were connected to the purpose, the why, and felt like that was why they wanted to be part of Tableau, but that also helped guide our go-to-market and sales motion. So we did that all the way through at Tableau. And then when I decided, hey, I'd like to give back and do some teaching, I looked around, and all of the business schools and universities, no one taught that. Like people taught, they taught product market fit, marketing, the 4 Ps of branding. They taught sales ops and some negotiations, but there was nothing about how to actually come up with a go-to-market strategy that helps to communicate the why and draw everyone into the purpose and the overall meaning of why the company exists, to be able to connect humans to humans. And so when I finished at Tableau and I decided to teach, I actually sat down with about 130 CEOs. Most were at hyper growth tech companies, but all different kinds of companies, and realized that this was a real challenge. Companies were so focused on building the product, which is important, but then operational rigor and processes and systems and tools, which is also important. They often didn't spend enough time thinking about the mission, the company's why, the overall purpose, their core values or operating principles, and how that informs what they do. And so that was the impetus of me building the curriculum for go-to-market strategy, which I teach at University of Washington. And now that's been relabeled culture-driven sales, because there were so many CROs, CEOs, CMOs that said, hey, you're teaching this at a university. I'd like this content too. And so that was the impetus of launching that thought leadership platform.
I love that.
Yeah, love the name, culture-driven sales. And love the story of door-to-door. Like, so anyone who have done the door-to-door sales know how hard the sales is like, and it will kind of train you to take those objections, because a lot of doors will shut down on your face.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what it says in sales, we're always talking about, it's not just about quantity. It's not just about the activities. You also have the quality too, because someone can just go do a ton of dials, but if they don't know who they're talking to and they don't have the right pitch and they don't know the right messaging, then it's not going to land. But the flip side is true too. Like you can study and do all this quality. And if you don't have the activity and the grit, you're just not going to be successful. And also in sales, and marketing, the more at bats we have, the more opportunities we have to refine our craft and just do better. And we call it the school of hard knocks when you're going door to door, because you're just doing something really hard, but you're doing it thousands of times and you get better. So I think by the time I graduated from college and started my career in business and in selling, I just had an advantage because I had done it so much more than people do in years. And I had that under my belt by the time I was 22.
Exactly. That's like running your own startup or starting your own thing. That's how you can learn a lot in a short span of time.
Absolutely.
And Kelly, the next question is on the alignment of internal teams, especially in this remote world, right? How important do you think alignment within the internal teams, and how can companies create a solid strategic narrative to bring more unity? Because we're all working in remote world, and especially Gong is over 1,000 employee company, but it doesn't look like that on LinkedIn. You're so responsive. Amit is so responsive for everything, small or big, right? So how do you create this unity and alignment within the teams?
Yeah, great question, because alignment is critical, even more important now than ever in this world of hybrid work. When you're returning to office, people are distributed all over the place. And also in this environment where it's so changing all the time with the economy and everything that's going on in the world, you have to make sure that everyone's aligned. So 2 things that I'll do with this. First is a lot of this comes back to the reason that I started culture-driven sales in the first place. Because what happens is oftentimes companies are saying, like people would come to me and go, Kelly, what do we do at our company? You have sales in one direction and marketing and it is in a different. Or, hey, the sales and marketing go-to-market teams are trying to sell something that's not the same as what the product team is building. What do we do about it? And they're oftentimes thinking about it too low, like in the operational rigor part. And it actually goes fully up to what we were just talking about a few moments ago, is does the company all agree on what the mission and the purpose and the why of the company is? Because if everyone agrees where they're headed, I'll give you an example. It's like many companies, what they do is imagine you have a map and you can give everyone a map, say of New York City. I can give everyone a map of New York City and say, hey, we're going to head around New York. And everyone's in the same vicinity, but everyone's kind of headed in different directions. But if you were to say, hey, we're going to meet at the front gate of the Central Park Zoo, people might have different ways to get there, but everyone knows exactly where they're headed. And it provides a lot more alignment because then everyone's really clear on the purpose and the mission and the why. And it drives a lot more collaboration and unification and alignment in terms of how you're going to get there. So that's piece one. Piece two is actually one of the areas that Gong can really help. Is what happens is companies want to make data-driven decisions because they all want to be able to make decisions based on facts. The problem is it's so hard to get access to all that information and facts that oftentimes people end up making decisions based on opinion. And that opinion is very different. And people sitting in different teams, in different departments, maybe even within the same group, if they don't have alignment of what's truly happening, they all might think that they know what's happening and are marching in a direction to try to make decisions according to that. But there's a whole bunch of disparate opinions. And you need to be making decisions based on facts and reality and data, because that will drive everyone to the same version of the truth. And then that really helps to drive alignment. So for instance, with Gong, what our mission is, we're very aligned on our mission. We unlock reality to help people and companies reach their full potential. And we could undo that and come up with all the different reasons why each word of that is very important, but that's unifying and drives alignment for our team because we all know we're unlocking reality, we have reality, we're unlocking it because it's hard for people to get to all that data, and we're helping people and companies to reach their full potential, which is pretty straightforward. We do that in a way with how we interact with folks is according to all of our operating principles, which helps to drive alignment in how we do business, how we engage with each other. But then we use our own product to be able to all be operating with the same facts and truth of reality. So we know what's happening across all of our customer conversations, which then drives a lot of alignment with our decision making. So I think those are the two things. Be clear on mission, vision, and purpose. And then two, understand the reality of your data, because that will also help drive alignment. Does that answer the question?
Love that. Yep. On the spot.
Now, that's a great segue to the next question. Unlocking reality is that not a lot of women are in leadership positions in SaaS. I looked at a CRO report and the numbers are unfortunate, right? So now helping people and companies reach their full potential, I believe, and I know Gong is an advocate of this too, is inclusion and making sure that, people have a seat at the table. So the question is here, how have you and the leadership team at Gong really empowered women and diversity to reach higher levels? Because this is a big deal. And it is a core focus of this podcast season for us, is making sure that we show the world that senior leaders don't have to look like me, white men, right? I have long hair, so I'm a little different, but how?
Well, Jared, I appreciate that the intentionality with putting this focus and spin on the podcast. I think it's super important. A couple interesting just thoughts there. So first of all, for me personally, when I decided to go into tech and into sales and into leadership, there more now. But I've been doing this for 30 years. And there were virtually no women in sales. There were virtually no women in technology. And then if you put women in technology in leadership positions, there was no one that looked like me, ever. I was almost always the only woman in the room. And even when I decided to, after Tableau, to go do board work, and I sat on 5 different hypergrowth tech boards, there on all of my boards, I was the first woman in the boardroom for all of them. I've been on 6 different boards now. I've been advisors for multiple companies. There were not other women there. And the interesting part is we all collectively have to be thinking about this, because the way we're going to fix the issue is people have an unconscious bias. And we've heard about all of this, but people like to hire people that have a similar set of experiences as their own, that look like them, that are the type of people that they want to hang out with, that they're friends with. And if we're truly going to drive diversity, we have to not only be thinking about just diversity, like in gender diversity, racial diversity, we need to be thinking about diversity in a much broader way, which is diversity of thought. Now, why should companies have diversity of thought? If you want to have the best decisions and the best innovation, you need to be able to challenge each other's thinking. You need to have enough different ideas that the best idea wins. And people that have different experience, racial diversity, geographic diversity, whatever it is, that all adds to so much more perspective when you're leading, making decisions, selling. Now, the other thing in sales, we're selling to people that are very diverse. And in order to be able to get that best win in our organizations to sell, then we need to be thinking about selling and marketing not only to have people who look like us for internally, but also for our customer base and prospect base to be able to address what they're doing. So coming back, you asked, what specifically are we doing at Gong? Now at Gong, there's a few things. One is we are being really thoughtful. We're talking about this all the time. And how do you do that? You think about making sure when you're interviewing, you have diverse slates of candidates. So you don't just go, people like to refer in their friends and all that. Great, we should talk to them. And referrals are a big source of hiring talent. But we need to be able to make sure we have diverse slates. There's a whole bunch of research that shows, like if you have just one woman in a whole pool of men, or you just have one racially diverse candidate in a whole pool of white candidates, it's almost never will the company choose the diverse candidate. You actually have to have multiple diverse candidates in order for that diverse candidate to have a higher chance of winning. So the first is you need to have diverse slate. The second is you also need to have not only a diverse slate of candidates, but a diverse slate of interviewers. Because if you have a diverse slate of candidates, but everyone interviewing looks the same, then they might be coming at it from that bias, that unconscious bias, but then the candidate might say, hey, there's no one at this company that looks like me. So that's the second thing. So diverse slate on both the candidate and the interviewing. And then other things is just being able to be intentional. You need to track it. You need to hold people accountable for that progress. And then you need to also do better mentoring and onboarding to make sure you invest in those people who are at your company to help make sure that they're successful, and because they're the next future generation who is going to help us to solve the problem.
Love it, Kelly. And that leads to the next question, right? So what got you interested in Gong, or what trick Amit played? Because I know and both Jared and I kind of had Amit on the show, and he shared his experience of how he got Elon on board. But would love to hear your story.
Yeah, this is a pretty cool story because there couldn't be a more perfect role for me on the planet than this role at Gong. And so why is that? I mean, I feel like it's my calling to come here. So why is it? I have spent my entire career focused on helping build and scale transformative tech companies. But then on top of that, I've really focused on 3 areas of passion. And we've talked about all of those today already. So the first is I really am super passionate about changing, evolving, transforming the world of sales and go-to-market. So why is that? Well, every other group has been transformed by technology, and you have HR tech and fintech and marketing tech. And sales is, for many companies, it's like over 50% of their employee population. And people are largely doing things in the same way that we have for generations. And there's a bunch of little tech, but it's kind of incremental tech. It's not hugely transformative. So the world of go-to-market, why am I passionate about that? I mean, I just told you, I started my own class. I built my own curriculum for a course. I launched culture-driven sales. I was on all these boards to help be the go-to-market voice in the boardroom to help these companies evolve and change. So the first is go-to-market in sales, and I've spent my entire career selling. The second is data. So I grew up in most of my career at Tableau. I'm super passionate about data. I'm all about, like, you have this next generation all the time of data and how you can have information and reality and truth and facts be able to help make people more effective, more productive, but also more empowered and have more fun at their job. And I did that for a long time at Tableau, which was in the generation of data that was all about self-service and data democratization. But now we are in the next generation of data where there's so much data, even though people want to be able to be democratized by having their own data, they don't even know what to do with it. So now this next generation is how we layer AI on top of that data to help people be able to get the best sense of what's going on with their information. And then the third piece is about culture. I already talked about it's people selling to people. It's being intentional and thoughtful about creating great workplaces where people can bring their best, true, authentic self. You know, this creates a safe psychological safety for people of different diverse backgrounds to have that diversity of thought. It creates a way where people can be unified and tied to the mission and purpose of the company. So my 3 tenets of how I've guided my career are: 1, transforming the world of go-to-market and sales; 2, the power of data; and 3 is culture. And if that is where I'm focused on, and I was doing all these things, I was teaching my class, I was doing all this board work, I was on 10 or 12 different women and diversity on board organizations, I was doing all this speaking on culture-driven sales, all these balls in the air to transform the world of go-to-market, focus on leveraging data to do that better, and helping companies to think about how important culture and people are. And then all of a sudden I heard about Gong, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's this company that the entire technology platform is to address my 3 passion areas. And so that's why ultimately I joined the board. I joined the board in February of last year. And after just a couple months on the board, I was like, wow, this is so much larger of an opportunity than I ever could have imagined. And I was having so much fun. I just had to be more involved. And so I came off of the board to join as president and COO about 1 year ago today, last summer.
Wow, wonderful. So it was not a tough decision at all.
Yeah. Well, you know what, it kind of was a tough decision and I'll tell you why. Not a tough decision at all to choose Gong. Like joining the board of Gong, that was super easy. But remember, I was retired. Like I was retired from operational work. Now, some people might say that I wasn't retired because I was on 5 boards and like 4 advising, and I was teaching a class, and I was doing a lot of speaking, and I was doing all this women on board stuff. So I was super busy in my quote unquote retired life, but I thought I was done with operational work. But the thing is like this opportunity at Gong is not only the opportunity for the company, because the company is so big, it's more that like we have an ability to impact the world in such a profound way where we can make the lives of everyone that is touching and interacting with customers and touching data of where integration is with whoever it is that you're interacting, to not only make companies better with how they engage with their customers, but just up-leveling how salespeople, how marketers, how product, how people do their jobs, focusing on growth mindset, helping people to always get better, and just improving everything in a way where people are not only better, but they're having so much more fun. And I just, again, I felt like it was my calling. If what my focus is to go have that as big of an impact as possible, I could have tried to have that impact with these 12 balls I was juggling in the air, or I could join the company that was going to make the most profound impact to make the world of go-to-market and sales just so much better for our generation and all generations coming after. And so, yes, in that way, it made the decision easy to pull me out of retirement to come to be here.
Yeah, and retirement sounds like it just meant you didn't have OKRs directly assigned to you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, retirement meant it was, I called it operational retirement because it wasn't just everything assigned to one specific company. And now I can take all those balls I was juggling to do the same thing I'm doing here in Gong in a whole bunch of different ways. And I realized, we just talked about mission and purpose, about how important it is for companies to actually be able to be very focused and intentional on that mission and purpose. And I was trying to do things and I had all these balls in the air. And I thought, you know what? I need to listen to my own teaching and be much more focused. And that is what we're focusing on here at Gong.
I love everything that you've said thus far, but nothing like resonates more than the culture aspect. I mean, heck, I left SaaS and everything to build a community. I have 30,000 people that we've grown organically with, like literally organic, no paid, within 2 years, because the culture eats strategy for breakfast. Somebody said that like every day. And you said your 3 points. One was data, one was culture. I have no doubt that data proves time and again that culture is important.
So first of all, Jared, super congratulations on creating your community so quickly. I think that we talked at the beginning about how important it is to emotionally connect and have people feel like they want to be pulled in. And you've just done such an amazing job in a short time to figure out what that community is that gets people like hooked. But when I said I've spent my career in these 3 areas of passion, so the go-to-market and sales, data, and culture, that's a different answer than if someone were to ask, well, what are your 3 top priorities? So oftentimes what happens is people ask me, okay, Kelly, if you're going to be like helping a startup from 0 to 50 million, what should be 3 top priorities? Or here, this company is about to go public, what should be 3 top priorities? Or this is a huge multi-billion-dollar company with hundreds of thousands of employees. And what should we be thinking about? What are our top 3 priorities? And everyone always seemed to think, this was another impetus to starting my course. People always seem to think that the answers would be different depending on stage or what the company did or what their strategic focus was at whatever time, like go global or become more efficient or launch a new product. And I say this, so for people that if you've heard my podcast before, this is redundant because I say it 100% of my podcast. When people ask, what are the top priorities? My top priorities will always be the same. 100% of the time, they always had in the past, they always will in the future, regardless of stage, regardless of what the company does. And here are my answers to that. And this will get back to your initial question, Jared, about culture.
Please.
What is what is number 1 priority? People. What is number 2 priority? People. And then you know where this is going. Number 3 priority. Do either of you want to take a guess?
That's people again.
People. So number 1 is people. Number 2 is people. Number 3 is people. And why is this? It might seem so obvious, but companies lose sight of this. And I don't understand why. It is people who build the product and services. That is the basis of your company.
Yep.
It is people who sell the product. It's people who engage with customers every day. It's people who hire the people on your team. And then it's people who manage those people. In the end, it's people who make all the decisions. So you can think about things any way that you want, but like if you have great product market fit and amazing timing and you have all your operational rigor, yeah, those are all important too. But if you have the wrong people, it doesn't matter how good all those others are. You're going to have problems. But if you have the right people, yeah, every company is going to make mistakes. But it's those people who address the mistakes and who solve the problems. So in the end and in the beginning and everywhere in between, it's people who build companies. And all of our focus should be on those people. And that's, again, the whole premise to what I talk about in my course and my thought leadership of culture-driven sales, because culture and people are always at the center. And so if we focus building our teams on empowering those people, on making them feel aligned and motivated and inspired by our sense of purpose and mission, and we create raving fan experiences for our customers who are also people of how they want to engage with our companies and use our products and services, then we're going to be in a good place. And so if we end on nothing else, just remember, it all comes down to people.
I couldn't agree more. I think people are the culture as well, going back to that. And what I'm impressed with is how you have this culture built internally with like how you hire folks, built social media, how you communicate with others, and marketing in general. But like you've taken it to like an innovative brand level, right? Like y'all had buzz like from the Super Bowl and stuff. Like you went out there. Can you share your thought process when you're executing this culture, this people first, with even your marketing strategies like that?
Yeah. Well, so first of all, I'm not taking credit for the marketing strategy. Gong has the most amazing marketers. And so kudos to all Gongsters who are on the marketing team, because they just know how to go and create a great brand and to help people feel really connected and pulled in by it. This does go, Jared, back to one of our operating principles, though. And one of our operating principles at Gong are we challenge conventional wisdom. And you see that light up all over the place within our marketing strategy. I mean, look at our brand. Our brand, we have these bright colors, purple and pink. Most B2B SaaS companies don't have purple and pink as their colors. We have a brand, we have a dog that's been involved in the brand. That's different. We're all over social media in a way like people are talking about things in their personal voice. And this actually helps to emotionally connect, but it's different. Companies are usually doing it in more of a company ROI, kind of an old school, more boring way. And ours is out there. It's big, it's bold, it's creative, it's different. And even with the Super Bowl ad, we're challenging conventional wisdom, taking risks in ways that other companies might not. And that is really guides a lot of our decisions. We act now, we win as a team. All of those are, we create raving fans. These are all operating principles too. But I think the one that kind of hits on what you just asked about, Jared, is really that challenge conventional wisdom operating principle.
Wonderful. Kelly, as you rightly said, every startup and every journey is completely different altogether. So you took a break. You thought you took a break. You thought you retired, right? And then you came back to Gong. So what was some of the setbacks or the difficult times you faced at Gong, and how did you overcome? Because I know it's all about success stories at Gong, but I'm sure you'd have faced some of those early challenges. And how did you navigate those?
At Gong, I mean, the cool part about Gong is there's nothing that is like broken. There's no blinking red light issues. It's really more of how we balance building the business today with where there's so much going on. Because when you're at a company and it's growing so fast, you can get into a mode, and we're not here at Gong, but we have to be careful of what I like to call whack-a-mole. And for some of you may remember that game of whack-a-mole that was around when I was a kid. I don't know, might be dating myself, maybe other people don't know, where you're always like whacking the mole of whatever is popping up now. And it's like a constant game of fire drill where companies get pulled into this urgent reactive state of things are moving so fast, you're just kind of hitting everything as they pop up. And what's really important is as you build and scale a business, whether you're early on or even if it's like a very bigger, mature business, is to be able to balance the needs of the business today with the needs of the business in the future so that you can be more strategic and lay the ground underneath you and lay the foundation that you're going to need for scale. Now, some companies get this wrong because they're so focused on this is what I'm going to need when I'm 10 times the size. They go hire a whole bunch of people that are going to help them in 5 years, but they don't know how to roll up their sleeves and go build the business now. But at the same time, there needs to be a balance of enough people that know how to do the business now and enough people that are going to help you to scale to later, of systems that are not only going to work now, but are going to help you scale for the future. And that's kind of the balancing act that we're always playing here at Gong, because we're working so fast and everything is growing and changing so fast that how are we serving the needs of the business today while we're balancing that with not only doing the urgent, but also focus on the important of what is going to be required in our business of tomorrow.
100% agree. A lot of challenges, kind of good to have challenges when you're in a fast growing company. And that also brings up to the next very important question. You talk a lot about work-life balance and family on LinkedIn and otherwise also. So how do you manage all this work-life balance, being on board of 6 companies and doing a full-time at Gong?
Well, now I'm only on the board of 2 companies. I dropped a bunch of the boards when I came over into this operational role. This challenge thing, if someone were to ask me what has been the biggest challenge in my career, it would be this personal balance. And people always talk about it of work-life balance. And I think that's just a weird way to think about it because you're not balancing work with life. I personally like to call it work-life integration because work is part of my life. Life is part of my work. Family is part of that. Friends are part of that. My hobbies are part of that. And, I work a lot. I work a lot and I love work and I'm super passionate about work. I also really love my family and my friends. And it's hard to balance it all, especially in the demands of, a more higher demanding executive role, even in sales where it's just so hard all the time. And with this balance, it's a challenge. I would not say that I've mastered it, but there are a few tips that I've done. So I'll leave people with a few tips. I'll give you one example. So I have 3 kids. My kids now are 19, 21, and 28. So just recently empty nester. But early days, I was traveling. When I was early days at Tableau, I was traveling so much. It created, it was very frustrating. Like I was always gone. It was hard on the kids. They would cry all the time. I'd have total guilt trip. I'd be traveling and I felt bad that I wasn't home. And if I was home, then I felt guilty that I wasn't on that trip. I just felt constant state of guilt all the time. And many people might appreciate that. But then I thought, you know what? Our favorite thing to do as a family is travel. And everyone in my family gets so irritated when I travel. How can I turn this around? And so my husband and I had a completely different approach because I was doing one international trip every month. And I did that for like a decade. I'd be gone 7 to 10 days every month to a different international location. And then a ton of domestic trips that were peppered in between. So we changed it. We bought a whole map, like a big map that has tax in it. We sat down with our kids at the beginning of each year. And we said, I said to them, Mom has to travel. I have to go to all these different places. You have a bunch of breaks. You have your midwinter break over President's Week. You have spring break. You have summer. You have Thanksgiving. We could never go anywhere when I was at Tableau over the winter break in December because that was end of Q4 and end of year. but there were 4 other times. So we said, you know what? Instead of me just going away, we'll take you 4 times a year. And you can just choose where you want to go. And they'd say, Mom, where are you going? And we'd explain all the places that I needed to go. They'd choose where they wanted to go. And I'd go for a week first. I'd do my work. I'd coordinate my vacation. My husband would fly the kids over. And then we'd have this great trip. And then we integrated that in a way where we could highlight this as the company. So wherever they came, we also would organize a family day at that office where all of the employees brought their spouse and kids. So like we did a baseball game in Japan. We did a karaoke night in Japan. We did a family picnic day at the office with clowns and stuff for a high tea in Singapore. We did, fun things in London, like all over the globe. We did really cool things. And my kids designated themselves as the official judges of how the food was in each office. So they felt like they had a job, and we went to each place. And you know what? My kids love that. Our most special time as a family, our best memories are those travels that we did that were bookending my required travel for work. So I think I would give that to people. If you think about it, not work-life balance, but work-life integration, how can you bring your families into it and make them part of the experience so that you can all experience it together? And that was really profoundly life-changing for our family.
Wow. Love the integration part.
I just tagged along on my partner's work trip to Nevis,
awesome.
staying in the
Yay.
4 Seasons for 6 nights. I'm like, I will gladly tag along.
Oh yeah, that sounds super fun. Where did you go?
Nevis, St. Kitts and Nevis, on the beach.
That sounds really rough there, Jared.
It was rough. It was better than my typical vacation. It was really good.
I'm glad you got to go. See, there's some work-life integration going on.
It really was, but we can't thank you enough for being here. I wanted to just close asking, like, what other awesome women should we be interviewing, be meeting with?
Well, there are so many. If I were to give one more to do next, I would definitely recommend talking to Elisa Fink, who was the CMO when I was CRO at Tableau, and she is super inspirational, and she has provided me a ton of motivation, inspiration, and learning over the years. She sits also on multiple different boards. She teaches a course at university too, and she is just a wealth of knowledge and very, very fun and engaging. So I would invite her.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you so much, Kelly. So much to learn from your journey, not just on a professional side, on the personal side, the work-life balance, the culture, the people, 3-piece formula, right? People, people, people. And we can't thank you enough for being on our show. And thanks a lot for the recommendation as well. And thanks for your time. Wish you all the best.
Yeah, and thank you. And thank you to Outplay, and thank you to all Gong customers. We really really appreciate the partnership. And it was fun to be here. Thanks for the discussion.
Thank you. Thanks, Kelly. You have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.